It's okay. I'm going to start from here. So hi guys, thanks for joining us here this early morning. I'm Andrzej, that's Laura, and we work at Anima International. And today I would like to tell you a few things about what we do at Anima International. So I'm going to do the fun part and tell stories, and Laura is going to take care of the technical part. So to start off, I think I would like to have a look inside of you and think back to the day when you first saw a photograph like that of a poor abused animal, and what did you feel? Like, did you feel sad because the animal was suffering immensely? Maybe you felt, anger because of the injustice that you see in this photograph, an animal that is reduced to kind of product. Or maybe, like me, you felt like this huge passion, this uncontainable passion for this to not happen in the future, to have a go and try to change stuff for the better. Because that's what I did when I learned about animal abuse. I immediately joined a local animal rights group. We got out on the streets and we started to try to change things. So this is me in 2008 or 9, doing outreach on the streets. And we knew that if we went out on the streets, we got the information out to the people, they would act upon it. They would say, oh, I agree, this is so bad, I have to act in accordance to what you are saying, I want to change myself. And we actually had a lot of great talks with people back then, people that supported us, saying you're doing the right thing, you're totally right, I'm going to change my ways from tomorrow on. And this got us really pumped, we're doing a great thing, we're having so much impact for the animals. So we challenged other industries, we invested a lot of time, a lot of resources in materials, in getting out there, fighting animal abusers, standing in front of circuses, and actually even seeing people turning away at the register, and we felt like, yes, we're doing something really great. It changes the lives of the animals for a better. But I think when I look from today's perspective, what we were doing back then looked more like this. And unfortunately, we could have done better if we knew better. But also what we did back then is we got interested in pressure campaigns. So we went against fur shops, especially one brand in Poland, which was very famous back then, called Simple. So we'd stand every day in front of, every weekend in front of this fur shop, trying to convince people to not to shop there. Would fight security guards because this was private property, and of course we wouldn't be able to register a demo there. But what wouldn't you do to help animals, right? But at some point we saw that it didn't work out so well, and they wouldn't budge. So we got more radical. And this is a demonstration we did in front of an owner of one of the fur shops belonging to that brand. So we just got out really late with torches and screamed in front of her house that she's an animal abuser and that she should stop her cruel business. And I think we talked with Laura, and I think the conclusion that we got to is that if you are working for the animals back there and don't have a photograph like that, you did something really, really wrong. And please convince her that she shows hers. This is mine. But looking again back at this time, I think what the conclusion that I can come to is that I wish I knew the things that I know now. Because when I look at this photograph or the one before, what I see is really bad communication with people. Like, for example, this is me on the right. I know you can't see me because someone covered my face with a black rectangle. And I think we weren't very inclusive. So very little, less and less people started showing up at these demonstrations, and we got really frustrated by it. We also got frustrated by the confrontational level of those demonstrations, because, as said, you had to be carried out by security guys every second week, and it wasn't nice. We saw that the people wouldn't budge, and that the campaign that we thought so successful didn't bear any effect. And in the end, I think this is the campaign that died after some time, because people just didn't support us. And I think if I knew back then how to communicate better and think about inclusiveness of actions, it maybe would have more impact. But unfortunately, what happened is that some people from the Polish movement started to go abroad, and started meeting people, and started seeing new perspectives. We started to get to know about tactics applied by organizations like Animal Equality or Anima, for an instance. And we started having conversations with them. We started listening what works for them. And we also started to capitalize on their experience, I think, because obviously if you're developing as an activist, it is great to make mistakes, and I think making mistakes is something that really helps you grow. But what also helps you grow, I think, is when someone made a mistake, maybe learn from him or her, and that's exactly what happened. What happened back then. So reaching out to those people and having conversations with them, it changed a lot of our focus that we had back then. It showed us that new successful tactics can be applied, like for example, investigations. But it also showed us, I think it was also very decisive, that it's good actually to focus just on one thing. Of course, there's a lot of animal suffering everywhere around there, but we cannot deal with all of it. So focusing just on one issue, in the case of otwarte klatki, was factory farming, I think it was really beneficial. And the third takeaway, I think, was to focus more on science than your intuitions. Meaning that you had to learn from social psychology, you had to get to know how people are wired, you had to know about fundraising, you had to get to know how to build a better organization so that you can achieve more impact. And I think what was, so this networking with people was extremely important, but what was also important back then is that around this time, several organizations in our region emerged as well. So, for example, we had Junior Viban in Latvia, and you had in Lithuania Turština Rvai, and a few years later Obraz. And the interactions with people working in a similar context, a social context, in a similar economical context as well. It was really beneficial because you could take the tactics that you saw with other organizations and run it through your own through your own campaigning context and get to adapt them and see what works, and then you could talk with your friends and tell them what worked for them. And I think that this is also something we're aiming to with our project. Just to start conversations between organizations, to start just start the process of exchanging tactics. Because right now, when we look outside of the countries that have been incorporated into the international animal rights movement, for example, if you think about Middle East, or if you even some countries in Eastern Europe, we still know very little about them. Of course, we know there's some street activism going on, people doing vegan outreach, trying to inform people about animal suffering. But I think even if I value the work that everyone is doing like that, over there, I think that there would be a lot of value for them to get more strategic and get more pragmatic. I think just to sum up, like two really great examples of how that works is one, our in-house example from Estonia, Nahtama Diplomat, where Christina was able to build a huge organization within 2 years in Estonia with dozens of volunteers, solid fundraising base, also securing a lot of progressive change for animals. And also another group, which is even more exciting to me personally, Kazi from Bulgaria, who also started, I think, 2 years ago in a country where not much organized activism was going on, actually. There were a few vegans doing some stuff on the streets, smearing themselves with blood. And what they did in 2 years' time, they not only published investigation in mink farming in all the major media in the country, but they also were able to build a pretty well-functioning organization. They were able to collect 10,000s of signatures for a fur farming ban in the country. And then are going to introduce a bill to ban fur farming in I think a few months' time in Parliament. And I think this is a great example of, that you can mention when you think about what the value is of on the one hand being strategic and pragmatic because they focus just on one campaign, but on the other hand also getting connecting with the international animal movement and starting these exchanges. Because I think these exchanges that we, for example, have here, where we gather and we have a space to discuss our experiences, or just to tell people about the stuff we're doing, they're extremely valuable, not only for the people who just started recently, but also for people who have been there for 20 years, for example, because we're getting new perspectives into the movement. I think sometimes, as Jan said yesterday, you get stuck with the ways you've been doing, and I think what's really important is go for innovation. And I think it's hard to get innovation when you just sit there with the people you already know. So incorporating people from other countries, getting their perspectives, and getting to know what they think will be very beneficial, and it will be a process that works both ways. And how this process will work, it's up to Laura.
So now I'm going to jump in. So basically in Anima International, we're formed by 9 different countries, covering Scandinavia and Eastern Europe. So because of the differences between these countries, we've actually learned and created a wide range of resources. And as Andrzej mentioned earlier, we've also learned from other organizations, and we have incorporated these strategies. Sometimes it's been really successful, and other times it's actually we've made mistakes and we've tried to learn from it. I think a good example, as Andrzej mentioned earlier, is in Estonia. So in the early stages of Estonia, they were trying to incorporate corporate outreach, strategies of pressure and protests, but they didn't take into account that Estonia is a post-Soviet country, and the culture of protesting, it doesn't really exist. And for example, going out in the streets with a megaphone would seem very, very aggressive. So at the beginning, even though these strategies were encouraged, they decided to water them down and look into, for example, instead of asking for boycotts, asking people to sign a petition. Instead of asking organizations to look into their corporate social responsibility, which does not exist in Estonia, they just talk to the companies in order to incorporate certain policies. So thanks to this, at the end, campaign was one, but this is a clear example in which not one shoe fits them all. So basically, we're passionate and about effective action for animals, and we want to know what works best. So this is the main reason why at Anima International we have decided to create the building project. So it's not only about sharing resources, and it's also about learning from others. It's about getting feedback and being able to adapt these strategies to other countries, other contexts, to political contexts, and the cultural. So this sounds a bit abstract when I talk about it, so I'm going to give you a particular example of how it could work. So let's say that you are starting a group in Eastern Europe, and you want to target students. And you're looking into providing them with images of factory farms. And there's two ways in which you can go with this. You could, for example, do an investigation and go in and get the footage, but maybe you just don't have the resources, you don't have the time, or you would rather spend the time doing something a bit more effective that you believe. Another thing is you could contact other groups, but perhaps you don't have these contacts. Perhaps these groups take too long to get back to you. Perhaps you want to edit the footage and it's not allowed. So what we want to provide is a platform where you literally go onto the website, look for the specific images you want, you can download them, you can edit them, you can put your logo on it, you can show it to all your students and see if it works. But the step further that we want to give is we want to get feedback from what has been done with this footage. So perhaps in Eastern Europe, you realize in your specific country, a specific target, which is students, graphic images, which is what you downloaded, doesn't work. So we want to get this feedback and say, hey, this doesn't work in this country, maybe you should provide images or a category of images where it's less graphic. And thanks to this, we believe that we can provide a platform where it's not only openly sharing resources, but at the same time learning from it. So how are we doing this, or what are we doing currently? So currently, step one is we've done extensive research into different countries, and the criteria mainly is the amount of animals which have been bred in this country, in factory farms, and how neglected the movement is. So we have already been in touch with countries, for example, like Romania, Indonesia, even Turkey, and we have provided some resources. And actually, we have asked them to also give us feedback. So the second step would be further on to be able to gather even more information, ask for their needs, and even produce and provide more specific, let's say, resources and materials which they believe could effectively work in their context. So, moving on. Oh yeah. So basically, also we want to stress the fact that this is not about like taking over a group, or it's not about telling people specifically what they have to do. It's actually about learning and sharing, and it's about trying to understand that we need to empower other activists. We need to create leaders in the movement, and that these leaders also empower other activists. It's about creating local networks and local groups where people learn from each other, and then they will be able to learn and understand what can be adapted to their own context and to their own country. Oh yeah. So basically, what we want to show as well is that we have certain resources which at the moment we're working on. So let's say that you are writing press releases and you have some knowledge, but you don't really know how follow-up calls with these journalists go. So we will provide a website where you can go through different people, and you can look into the organization, the organization's responsibilities of this person, and see if it matches what you want to learn, and you can contact them directly. So in this case, Kirsty would be a perfect example for this. The next would be to provide materials and guides. We've already done this, but this is going to go a bit further. So usually when groups start, one of the main problems or issues they have is they have all these ideas and all these campaigns, but they don't know how to engage volunteers. And sometimes even because of the country or because there's no culture of like doing volunteering work, people don't know how to respond or how to attract them or even how to maintain them more than a few months. So we have provided already guides to different groups, for example, in Serbia or in Bulgaria, where not only they can see what has worked in certain contexts with us, but also they can provide us feedback to see if what is being applied, it actually works for them, and then other groups and other organizations could actually learn from that. Yeah, and also, as the example I mentioned before, like this group in Eastern Europe where they needed to raw material in order to edit it and to show it to students, we're also going to provide that. We're going to provide raw footage, we're going to provide raw images where you can just basically download and use and be able to, which obviously free of charge and openly, and be able, as I mentioned before, to give us feedback. And this is something we're looking into in the near future as well. We also want to create a space of discussion where people can comment, where people can discuss between others. It gets to a point where this starts to roll out by itself. And people can actually learn individually without having to particularly just contact each other, but they have an actual platform where they can go. Yeah, and provide training. This is something we're also looking into because it's something that we do internally. Internally, we'll already provide training to volunteers. I think great examples are fundraising and media. And this is something that we're also looking into because a lot of times when groups start, one of the main issues is they don't have money. They don't have enough money to be able to continue with these campaigns that they want to do. So we would, in this case, provide training for fundraising and be able to have people learn in order to continue with their organization. So yeah, so basically that was kind of very, very short in a nutshell how we look into this project. We would also like to be able to reach out to people that have any ideas or any context of how this can be bigger or even better. And Andrew and me will be around until all day today and tomorrow as well. So please feel free to approach us and talk to us, and we'll be more than happy to listen and help. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It was nice to see all the pictures from our past. Okay, have you got any questions? Okay.
Thanks for presentation. I wonder if you can name some approximate type of milestones.
Yeah, like we basically are looking into trying to make, we already have prototypes, we already have a lot of the resources, but we're looking into trying to launch it by the end of the year. Yeah.
Any other questions? Or maybe you can quickly comment on the updates about Iran, because that's quite impressive.
I think a concrete example how this works is that we started looking into Iran as one of the countries that could be really interesting to work in and to try to connect with the people doing work there. Also being a country where I think we didn't know very much about except what we read up somewhere. So I think a lot about our work is also using opportunities. So we used the opportunity that one of our fellow colleagues was going to Iran for some time, and we recruited him to reach out to activists and to just get to know the situation on the ground there. And so basically what he was doing for I think at least a month was just meeting with people, talking with them, getting their perspectives, also getting their opinions on what could work. in Iranian context. And for example, what turned out is that due to the political situation, for example, pressure campaigns wouldn't be something that any of the people he talked to would be in favor of, because obviously the political situation doesn't allow for that. But what he also saw and got to know is that there's a quite strong vegan movement there. Like a lot of people interested in plant-based foods. There are in fact huge vegan influencers that are recognized by the broader public. Some, I don't know, even vegan chefs, I think. And he found some people who would like to run a plant-based campaign, meaning like similar to the Polish Roślinne or the Russian Better Eating, I think. And how we are going to approach that is, I think in cooperation with the local people, we start by adapting our materials to a local context, because of course we have materials in all our local languages, but they cannot be used in Iran, and we're going to try to adapt the Chefs for Change program that Veronica developed, I think, earlier this year. And we'll just see where it takes us from there. But I think it is great potential, and I think that will also empower the local people to gather around projects other than they are in existence right now. It's like maybe it doesn't sound like that, but they're really passionate and really looking forward to how this will work out. And I think this is something, this is so great about this project, is that we're continuously learning and finding out new things about the animal rights movement and about people caring about animals all around the world, about their perspectives, I think, and also about how we can further the development and make the world better.
Okay, thanks. Any other question? Okay, if not, then thank you again. And one more announcement, the screening of the movie will start 15 minutes earlier than it's on the schedule, so remember about that.